First, she's talking to his John, she's the board chair, and it puts poor John in an awkward spot.
Commissioner Sullivan has his letter that she wants to send to Governor Brown, just to ask to consider spraying during rulemaking for justice identification. So the best way to do this is she can just introduce it to the boards, and then by consensus we can have it to you. Yeah. Just to send the letter to support it. Yeah, yeah.
Put it in form.
Perfect. I'm going to pull minutes off the consent calendar. And Kathleen's got a couple lines, 3 minutes. So I just told her to go ahead and pull it off. And then she can get together with Teresa.
And then they'll put it on next month,
Yeah.
or next meeting. Yeah.
Okay. And that's it. We go on to the next meeting. You call it. That'll be the end of the month.
28.
I can call it if I have to. If it's on the agenda.
We don't speak Spanish real well.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, don't touch it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we get a couple of departments that we started.
Oh, I cannot get that.
A&T is just nailed.
About 20 years ago, and I was sitting there in bed for 4 days. I never been. I think it was around about 10. And I was very sick. And then I got
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably same thing.
You better be touching wood big time.
Is Leanne not here?
Good evening. The Board of Commissioners is the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance. May I have the roll call, please? I'm going to make a change to the agenda, the consent calendar. Commissioner Sullivan has asked to remove item 6B from the minutes. And we'll table those and I'll review those in the clerk. Otherwise, I look for a motion to approve the agenda with 6B removed as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. We have some presentations tonight. Our first presentation is the second quarter financials. Welcome, Steele.
Thank you, commissioners. Does that, Perfect, thank you. So this is that time. We're a little bit late just because we had a lot going on last month, but I wanted to make sure to bring the second quarter financials to all of you. As usual, most funds are generally in line with where we expect them to be at this time of year. We continue to monitor consider those additional costs, which I will speak to in a little bit. And then rather than taking from budgeted contingencies, find areas where we could possibly just do a budget adjustment moving from one org unit to another if applicable. At the end of the second quarter, as far as property taxes collected, we're at 95% collected of the budgeted amount. This slide here is representative of the past 5 years as well as the current amount, and this is excluding the beginning balance. Through the second quarter, we are at approximately $27,300,000, which is 64.6% collected, which kind of, we kind of fluctuate within that 5% range from year to year. This slide is specifically for the general fund, and again, it does not include the beginning balance. Of the beginning balance that rolled over, the audited beginning balance was approximately $6 million of that, so that would go on top of that $16.1 million. We are slightly above the normal 65% range at 76%. Whoops, sorry. And that is partly due to the fact that while we budgeted property taxes at a certain amount, we don't always budget the full amount that we roll on the tax roll because we don't always anticipate that current year taxes will be collected fully because we have people who are delinquent with their taxes. And so, but those tax collections are coming in higher than what we budgeted. So, additionally, we have received, 100% of the timber revenues that we budget for in the general fund. So those were received 100%. Is that? Okay. So this slide here is representative of the major revenue sources that we have. So like I said, property taxes, we have currently collected just over $8 million. The timber revenues were 100% collected for the amount budgeted in the general fund. And then of the amount that we transfer to the special projects fund, we have collected just over $1 million. And we have received our the third quarter. So this slide is representative of the payroll expenses, and as budgeted, we're about 50% where we should be for this time of year. So there is nothing out of the ordinary here. This is for all general fund payroll. So again, individual org units. To that. So this is the general, that one that says 0, that will be going next fiscal year because that was when we had the PERS bond and that it no longer is applicable. Okay. Thank you. So this, is it on? Okay. So as you can see, most of these are for the general fund, and most of these are at that 50% mark as where they should be. Some of them are running slightly above. For instance, the clerk, admin, and collection or elections, that one is slightly above, and that has to do with when we brought on our new county clerk, our former county clerk was still here, and so we had a transition period for some cross training and stuff. So they're running a little bit above there. The one that says transfers, again, that will only be the amount that will be transferred is only up to the amount budgeted. So while transfers are coming in high, it still will not exceed the budgeted amount. And of those, one of those transfers is the transfers to special projects, the excess timber revenues. And since that's coming in high, that's partly why that's already so far above. This slide here is representative of the Board of Commissioners and where expenditures currently are at for this org unit. Any questions? I don't have anything to comment here.
I'm holding my question, so I have.
Oh, okay, that's fine. And this is just the individual expenditures per commissioner. Currently, after the second quarter, $10,112 has been spent of the 58%, which is 58% of the amount budgeted.
So on the right
Uh-huh.
side,
Yeah.
why don't those numbers add up with the numbers on the bottom?
Because like the numbers on the bottom are the total amount spent per each commissioner, and the numbers on the right is so for education and training, 500 and, oh, that's a good question. I don't know, probably, I apologize. I don't think that I updated those numbers from the previous quarter.
What's the percentage of the budget, the overall budget that Commissioner Monty
The overall general fund budget,
here for, so this particular part of the budget, what percentage of the whole budget is the commissioners paying?
I wouldn't be able to answer that off of the top of my head. The general fund budget, which the Board of Commissioners is approximately 22 million, and the general, or the total budget for the commissioners is, I believe, 91,560. Yeah.
69,000 in Commissioner
So far.
Reitman
Yeah.
total for the year.
Yeah, and I apologize, Commissioner Nebaker, I did not get those numbers updated on the right-hand side.
The numbers.
The numbers on the right-hand side, the 520, the 20, yeah, those don't entirely line up. I'd have to do the math in 3,000, 4,500. Yeah, because the education and training says 520, and it's
Yeah.
more than that, so my apologies. This slide here is representative of the health department. Again, most of these org units are coming in as expected. The household hazardous waste, I believe, will be coming before you in the month of March with a proposal to continue to move forward on that project. I also know that the the public health department has been actively receiving grants. So they will be coming forward with budget adjustments because they will need your authority to expend those grant dollars. They've received several helpful grants recently. The roads department, again, is coming in as expected. While the road admin and support is slightly above the 50%, that's because of a one-time insurance payment made. Road maintenance and construction is slightly under because they'll start picking up as things dry out in the spring. The equipment replacement, they have budgeted 4 pieces of equipment, and they have only bought, I believe, 2 of those currently, 2 of the lesser expensive ones. And then the road district, again, that's a transfer, and so as the funds are available, the funds will be transferred to road maintenance and construction and admin to support those projects. These are all the other org units. Again, they are coming in as expected. The only one that I really want to speak to at this time is the fair and general operation one. While it's showing below 50%, part of that is because of budgeted contingency. And since that contingency has not yet been spent, it doesn't show what it's truly doing. They are currently above 60% in their personnel costs and at 99.9% of their materials and services. And that is concerning to me, and I have shared that on several occasions with the Fair Board. I did go and have a meeting with them at their Fair Board meeting last week, and I expressed those concerns. I have been in communication with several of the board members after that, and have advised them that I encourage them to take a harder look at how their spending habits are occurring. They were in agreement. They're planning to meet tomorrow night to have discussions about what direction they're going. And so if I have anything new to report back to you guys on that, I will be sure to keep you posted. But at this time, they will be coming before you with a budget adjustment from their contingency, but they're putting major projects on hold at this time, as far as what was last reported to me, so. Yes.
I just have a question about, and I don't know if I'll be able to phrase this right, but
Yeah.
I find, when I looked at these charts, I find them kind of confusing.
Okay.
And part of it is that there's a great deal of detail on the county commissioners,
Uh-huh.
which is fine. There's no problem there. But like they're talking about, there's dollar amounts here. But when it comes to the other charts, those are just percentages. So I'm wondering why you're doing percentages on one and dollar amounts on the other.
Well, I can answer that because we'd asked specifically for a breakdown of commissioners' expenses in this report.
And that's fine. I just think maybe an additional page of what the percentages are, or attach the money.
So the percentages of each
Like the
org
road
unit?
maintenance and construction at 40.9%.
Uh-huh.
Is that the materials and stuff for road construction, or is it also payroll for
So
the people that are doing the roads?
So for the road maintenance and construction, that is payroll and materials for everything budgeted for road maintenance and construction. So for instance, there's office staff, road admin, that's the other one. And so then as well as things such as photocopy expenses, postage, phones, the insurance, those are all administrative things that are getting paid out of the road admin one, and then the road maintenance and construction, and it has the personnel costs for those admin staff, and then the maintenance and construction is specifically for like your road foreman, your road flaggers, or the maintenance shop guys, and then as well as the road projects that they're doing.
So when you're coming in at 40.9%, what dollar figure is that? I know you probably don't have it.
Yeah, off the top of my head.
Make sure.
Yeah, and I would be happy to include the budgeted dollar amounts of those, but I want to say that the road, and Michael could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say his road maintenance and construction budget is around $3 million. Yeah, $3 or $4 million.
Okay, and that's great.
And so I can definitely add in the dollar amounts for those.
And when we see 3% of the household hazardous waste, that means it hasn't even started to be built yet.
That means that there is approximately in this fiscal year $13,000 that has been spent towards the construction of that. And no, they haven't, because they're still in the permitting phase, as well as what they'll be bringing before you in March is a not to exceed contract amount.
Oh, okay. I thought we had signed something with them already.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then on these, so on the payroll, in the second quarter,
And that is specifically for the general fund. That is not all funds payroll. That's specifically to the general fund departments, which are things such as budget and finance, county manager, clerk and elections, assessment and taxation, the sheriff's office, criminal, corrections, work crew.
so if, like, when you had pointed out that clerks and administration, that's over because we had an overlap of personnel. So
Yeah.
that's talking about their salary.
Well,
The salary is a little higher.
So there's other factors that play into that being above the 50%, but one of those factors is because essentially for a few weeks we had 2 clerk salaries that we were paying.
Okay, I guess my confusion, and I know I keep saying this, I haven't had a chance to
Yeah.
come and talk with you about what exact, because it's confusing to me. At one hand, we're talking about payroll, and then on here, you're saying it's payroll and other.
So on one page, we're specifically talking about payroll, and I can change this presentation to any way you like, but this is just kind of in prior year commissioner requests, because payroll has always been kind of a hot topic. And so specifically for the general fund, how much we're paying in payroll costs. And then the next slide goes to overall for each of those general fund org units, how much have they expended of their total budget? And so for for clerk and admin and elections, it's over the 50% mark. Part of that is because of the fact that their payroll costs have exceeded where they should have been at that point in time. And then some of it too is we had a special election in January that was unbudgeted for because it was a state mandated election. And so there were additional costs there as well. And so at this time, we're waiting to see, because we haven't exceeded budget authority, so we're waiting to see if there's cost savings somewhere else that can be realized rather than having to take money from contingency, or is there cost savings within another general fund area that we can move budget authority from one to another rather than taking from contingency.
And I guess thank you, and I guess on the payroll, everybody talks about PERS. I know we talk about them frequently here. I would like to have a little more attention to that.
Like what kind of attention?
Well, where are we at? Like last meeting you were talking about moving bonds or whatever, that we're anticipating the increase in PERS costs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just like to have maybe something that's PERS is held out separately. This is how we're doing with PERS. I don't know. This is not my.
Your forte?
So I'll set up a meeting with
Yeah,
you.
that'd be great. Yeah. Any other questions? So just to summarize again, we're watching those that are exceeding the 50% mark, and where we can, we'll realize savings rather than taking from contingency. And currently, staff is beginning to work on the 18-19 budget process. Departments have turned in their current year revenue and expenditure projections, and on the 23rd, they'll be submitting their budget requests, and we'll be reviewing those to compile everything to see. To be able to put it together and have meetings with them to make sure that we are meeting the needs that they're requesting and see how it's possible and continuing on with the budget process. Anything else?
Any other questions for staff? Thank you for your
Thanks.
report.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next item, while Teresa's getting the computer ready, is the North Coast Business Park. Good evening, Mr. Summers.
Good evening, Commission. Michael Summers, Clatsop County Public Works Director. I have a presentation for you tonight. It's an update of the North Coast Business Park. If you recall, back on May 24th, 2017, I had a short presentation kind of about the North Coast Business Park as well. This is really an update to that. I have a fairly lengthy presentation, but I think I want to focus on talks about background history, the recent planning efforts, which I touched on in the second meeting in May, wetland permitting mitigation steps, but I was hoping to focus on recent effort and next steps as part of this presentation. And the background and planning efforts are really more for reference, and I believe that the clerk provided the commission with a copy of the presentation via paper. I was hoping to get it to you about a week ago for your review prior. We've had some stuff happen that's been tough. So.
Excuse me, Teresa, could we get just a little volume on Mr. Summers? Yeah. Okay.
So just 53, this is what it looked like, the area looked like oh, sure. In 1953, this is what the area looked like. An aerial photograph before really any development happened out there. And then 1966, 67, they cleared the area significantly in preparation for an aluminum smelter plant that never occurred. That's and it's probably good that the aluminum smelter plant never occurred.
Who owned that land in 1953?
I am not sure. I believe it was a conglomeration from the company that wanted to put the plant there, bought all of it, and then it's been working working since the late 60s into what it is today.
It's been several ownerships.
Absolutely, so. So I'm going to fast forward now in the presentation to more recent steps. So in 2011, the county hired Cardno or WRG company to complete a master plan update of the park, and it was completed in 2011. And that's been kind of the framework moving forward since then. And I have commissioners haven't seen one, I have a copy for reference as well. 2014, the county manager time was adamant, and it was a good program to develop the area as a regionally significant industrial area, which is a state business development, business organ program to try and make it a significantly important site statewide. It was a long process. It went through quite a vetting application process through the state in order to garner that designation. Back in 2014 was the application, and it was approved officially in the latter part or the early part of 2015. And the next step that was completed was enterprise zone. This map, the upper map talks about this was a collaborative effort between the city of Warrenton, Clatsop County, Port of Astoria, and the county commission to develop an enterprise zone, which is a property tax, business development, economic development mechanism in the state of Oregon. And that was the North Coast Business Park, as well as many other properties, industrial properties within Clatsop County, city of Warrenton, are included in this zone. So, and it's operated by Cedar, is the county's entity that operates this zone. So, I'm going to skip that. Over to next steps, or sorry, recent effort, excuse me. So, so recent efforts that we've done back in May, the next steps in the presentation was to do 2 land divisions, and we completed the 2 land divisions in December. I came before the commission with County Surveyor Vance Swenson in September of 2017 to talk about, to give her the approval to start the 2 land divisions. Those are now completed, and we also did a right-of-way vacation as well, when there's some old plats, old right-of-ways that have no business being kind of in the part of the uppermost part had this old plat from 100 years ago that had no business being platted from a residential standpoint in this area. That just got completed last night. I went to the city council, the city of Warrenton last night, and that got completed last night.
What's that those black lines up there on the top where the power lines come in?
Up there, and then there is a very small, there's a very tiny part kind of in the southernmost parcel. You see how there's a, right over here, see that little jig jog in there? That is now gone.
That is now what?
That is now no longer a piece of right-of-way. It's a piece of county-owned real property.
It's part of the parcel.
It was part of the parcel. So that's complete. And the land division part was really important. So now from a real property standpoint, the property looks like this. The roadways 19th and 19th on the north side divide the land. So there's several pieces of real property. If you recall, when the county sold the parcel to Big Beams, we had to do a property line adjustment. The orientation of real property wasn't quite the orientation that it was desired. We've made some steps in recently, this last about the last 12 to 14 months to get real property standpoint better for suited. So, next step really is finalizing the Fort George or Big Beans transaction with completing the wetland mitigation aspects of that transaction. That's been in the works for about a year now, and we're in the tail end. My goal is to make recommendation on the first or second meeting in March to the county commission, because it's the county owns the real property in question, where we want to preserve wetlands. The county owns those lands, so the county commission is the acting body. So we'll be coming before with a recommendation on several real property instruments, a conservation easement to solidify that, the wetland mitigation process, so a permanent easement to conserve wetlands on one property so we can fill them on the North Coast Business Park as part of that transaction for the Fort George parcel. The next, also the other aspect of that is the Bugle Road construction. Back in the May 24th meeting, we talked about, and I've been before you several times since, building the roadway between Ensign, from the curb cut south to 19th Street, right? That is, we got the grant opportunity, immediate opportunity fund from ODOT, and we have the project fully designed. The next phase is to finalize the final permitting for that project and break ground late spring, early summer of 18. And that construction timeframe is a 6-month construction window for that project. Then future next steps, and this will be rolled into the 18-19 budget recommendation that I have for the county commission in the coming months, is to, now that there are several parcels of real property, a recommendation would be to maybe more actively list them from a real property standpoint. And talk about, and we could have maybe a work session or whatever's desired to help start that process, and additional information about the next steps to make the property more marketable from a real property standpoint. So that rolls into a market analysis, which is, there was one done when we did the update, the county did the update in 2011. Talks about the economic need, what types of markets would this property serve. I think we know that, but it might be good to get a refresher, and it would help with a specific market for an end user from a real property standpoint. So,
Michael,
do you have any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
So can we put that map up
Absolutely.
again? So just to orient someone who's completely lost with directions, where would you put Walmart on here? So,
Right here. There's a Costco.
oh, this is Walmart.
This is Costco. This is the Costco gas. The underlying aerial photograph is a little old compared to Walmart. Is this property right, where it'd be right here?
And where do they hope to possibly put some housing for some of the workers out there? Do you know? Like, the workforce housing would not necessarily be within this pink area.
No.
It would be in the surrounding areas?
Correct.
It's really
But-
immediately adjacent, all around, just south of southeast 19th Street.
I-
There's tons of housing going up there.
I do know that there's an apartment complex this parcel right here, which is, this is the animal shelter, this is a food bank. There is an existing apartment complex under construction right now.
I think that's
The
64
current housing
units.
that I understand is out there is like $1,000 for, that's, you know, a two-bedroom, or that's, one bedroom. That's not really affordable for people on $12 an hour wages.
I'm not sure of the market of, it's not really my area of expertise on housing aspects of, from the housing market demand standpoint. And there's also a residential subdivision, I believe, slated. There's some more vacant lots here, and this is Forest Rim subdivision here has lots of multifamily, as well as here. And then there's another subdivision in the works, I believe, down here.
Who owns that land down there?
The current real property owner, I'm not aware.
This is the, right here, this is the North Dakota Housing Authority's house right here.
Oh, okay.
We're trying to expand those.
And is the potential jail site on here also? It would be, wouldn't it? Right here, okay. So that's the sheriff's office.
That's the youth authority. This facility right here is where the Clatsop County Sheriff Office is located.
Okay. And I've got two more questions. One, when I was out here, it struck me that perhaps we could find a way to make it a little more pedestrian friendly. I know that people drive out there, but like I wanted to walk from Costco to Verizon, and there were sidewalks, but I think that as we go forward, particularly if we're gonna have housing out there.
You're talking in this development. I believe the city of Warrenton is doing a transportation system plan update process right now, and that has been brought up in those processes. The Ensign Lane has sidewalks on it, the whole length of it.
Because sometimes like
And then-
visually it's hard to.
Yeah.
Blind spot.
And then this roadway that's coming here it's slated for sidewalks. It's a complete street, 3 lanes with sidewalks on both sides, street lights. And the city of Warrenton is making the end user here, Fort George, Big Beams, put in sidewalks as well. You see there's a partial sidewalk along, this is now Astoria Ford. We made them put in a sidewalk to here. And the future developer will put in a sidewalk. Whoever develops this will put in a sidewalk. So it'll eventually get there. It's a process. There is already bus service out here. When we did the Walmart project, the bus company requested a bus stop. There was a bus pullout for that project, and there is bus service that comes. I'm not the Sunset Empire runs that service, but there is busing that comes through this, makes a loop through this site. It's a heavily used.
Okay, you get my, it sounds like other people around that issue all
Correct.
And then the next question is, do you have any update on how Walmart's doing?
I do not. It's not, because it's in the Walmart is entirely within the city limits of
Okay, so that's.
the city of Warrenton, other than Ensign Lane is a county road.
I just thought
I'm
maybe
not-
the county road people talk about projects together or something.
We do, but I'm not,
It's not a road project, so.
I'm not completely up to
did,
speed, but maybe.
Recently, actually, a conversation I had with the city administrator, Warrenton, said she thought they were still on track for an early summer opening.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sullivan? Thank you for the report.
Yeah, we're looking forward to moving along.
Yes. More stuff.
Okay, that concludes our presentations, and now is an opportunity for business from the public. I see no business from the public tonight. And then looking for a motion to approve the amended consent calendar.
So move.
We have a motion and a second to approve the amended consent calendar. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And tonight, we're also going to have a discussion on the Clatsop County Jail.
Yeah, let me, while a couple of folks are stepping up to the table, let me give a little bit of background and introduction. I mean, as you know, for quite some time now, we've been looking at the North Coast Youth Correctional Facility property to try to decide what we might do with that. Obviously, the initial interest was in using that as a jail. And I think you also know for several months now, we've been working with architects, and Erica Loindis here from DLR Architects, who's been our architectural firm to work on this. I think in the past, we presented to you, a number of sort of options. We've gone back since then, and when I say we, county management and, Dave, our facilities guy, sheriff, and his folks, to try to look at those options and see if we could sort of coalesce maybe around one of those options. And so I think that's really the kind of purpose of the presentation tonight, is to try to bring you up to speed, at least from those of us that have been spending quite a bit of time on this, to say this is basically what we think. Something like this is probably what we would recommend. I want to be clear when I say that, you have to make the decision, whether you do this or not, whether you put a jail bond, on the ballot at some point. What we're saying in this particular instance is if we do go forward with the jail, this is what we would be recommending, but there's still decisions that you have to make this possible. And so I know, Sheriff Bergen's here tonight, Chief Deputy Williams, and Jail Commander Matt Phillips as well. And so we're going to get a presentation from Erica on our preferred option and open it up for discussion.
Do you need my name again? Okay. So thank you very much for letting us come and share this project with you. I'm going to run through just kind of, sorry, I apologize for any font issues that may happen because our font is different than on yours. But run through the option, share some cost analysis that we have provided based on this scenario, and also talk a little bit about operations and how many officers it would take to operate this facility. So the option that we are recommending as the best option provides 148 beds, and this is a mixture of quad, double, and single beds. And the configuration is a half of a kind of full build-out housing unit that provides these pie-shaped housing units that we showed in the previous workshop. And this allows for different kinds of classifications and holding of people of different needs and different levels. And in this scenario, we are also recommending a renovation of the existing Oregon Youth Authority. So using a lot of the spaces as is, and some of them being renovated so that it can hold adults, and also provide the programs and functions that we think would be really advantageous and really helpful to the population that you would have. And that includes medical support programming and education on site. And this plan is optimal because it does allow in this extra space on site through here. Should any additional future growth need to happen? Oh.
We can't see that when you're doing that.
Yeah. So in the part that's where the other half of the pie is, on the other side, on the left side of the hallway.
Middle white section.
Marker, we just need to turn and look at it. So,
Here. This area right here.
okay. Oh, yeah, great.
That area is optimal for being able to have future build out in the future if you need it. So additional housing pods could be built there should the growth of the county need more housing without having another significant place or having to relocate to another facility in the future.
So it basically would be a mirror of the
Yep.
mirror. Okay, that's what I thought. We
Yep.
originally talked about that too.
Yes, we did. And we also have investigated some ways that if more classification was needed, there's renovations in this existing pod by adding some extra walls that would allow potentially some more classification. But this plan right now meets the needs of what we think would be the first build out. And in the future, there's also these areas in gray are the existing housing units for Oregon Youth Authority. And this plan would be dormant for now because they would take more renovation to be able to go from a youth facility to an adult facility. So it's more optimal to build new and provide spaces that are safe and durable and provide that programming for adults in that new build out.
Would this budget also provide for maintenance for that unused?
That maintenance would be part of the ongoing, this estimate for future ongoing maintenance. It's for standard maintenance. There is some deferred costs from the Oregon Youth Authority's report that does account for that. That would make it so it's safe and watertight. Yes,
It would be.
it would be included in the deferred maintenance costs that we have identified in this, but ongoing maintenance would not be included.
Yeah, I also, just to add to that, once we know what you would like to do, this utilizes about half of the current facility. As you can see, roughly half of it, 45% would be dormant. But if we did move forward with something like this, we would also start looking what else we could use that other part of the facility for. And we haven't done that yet because we're not quite sure, what we're moving forward with.
What part of the building has the water damage?
The water damage is around the exterior envelope. There's a lot of it around that housing area that's in gray, but it is prevalent throughout. The EIFS failed on that exterior enclosure, so they've identified some measures to remove some of the exterior materials so that we could fix the interior walls, or fix those walls. Oops. It's kind of throughout.
Oh, is that part of the plan to stabilize the rock?
Yes,
Just be deferred maintenance.
that's part of the deferred maintenance costs. Yes.
And then also, I had a question about, at the same time you're doing this, are you doing seismic upgrades?
No seismic upgrades have been identified right now that are needed.
Because it was already built to current codes, or?
Our understanding is there's not a seismic issue for the building. From our reports and the previous reports that Oregon Youth Authority provided, seismic issues were not identified as an issue to the building.
Yeah, that's something that almost has to be evaluated on a site-by-site basis, and it turned out that this site is considered seismologically stable, and so there wasn't any additional mitigation that was recommended.
What about, because we just had a emergency, there was just, where I work, there was a week-long conference on the earthquake and the tsunami. So how long would it take to evacuate this building?
I don't have that information of a timeline. I don't know how to evaluate that. We do evaluate for modes of if there's a fire, because this plan is very optimal to not require a full evacuation of the entire facility because of the building materials of the new addition. So we evaluate it for fire, but I've not evaluated for earthquake or tsunami.
Yeah, one of the advantages of this site is that it is out of the tsunami inundation zone, so it's still a concern, but not as much of a concern if it was located in the tsunami inundation zone.
Are there any other questions about the plan? And I did want to emphasize that this plan does utilize a lot of space for programs and direct access by where the hallways and how the inmates would be taken through the facility, gives them lots of access to those education rooms and program spaces. That's an important aspect that we want to carry through in this plan. This chart shows the total build-out number of beds, so a breakdown of what would give you a total bed count. And then the total area, so the renovated area is just over 43,000 square feet of the Oregon Youth Authority's existing building. And then the addition building is just under 20,000 square feet of addition. So it gives a total building area of 62,866 square feet. The total cost, we have identified for the building renovation $5,482,000 of renovation, which some of that has been identified by Oregon Youth Authority. So that includes the deferred maintenance items that they've said. And the addition would cost $11,901,000 to provide a total hard construction cost of $17,383,000. And this provides 4 new pods, which allows for classification of 4 different groups of people. And when we look at and we'll talk about operations at the end. So when you take the hard cost, we took that hard number cost and got to the 17 million, so that added in some site energy or site costs to just do some minimal site landscaping around the building. Because we're building inside the courtyard, there's not a lot of issues with the neighboring wetlands. We do not need to mitigate wetlands inside that courtyard. And the site prep work is fairly minimal because it's already a flat graded site and well maintained. And then we added on the soft costs that would be required for any typical construction project. So the total project cost would be $23,809,000 or $650.
I've been working on this for about a year or more. Well, I've been 10 years, right? About 10 years now? About 19.
Yep.
And, we had some good choices a year ago, and this is kind of where we landed. This is really good to me. I think, what did we run the last bond for? 17 million?
Yeah, I think it was 15 or 16. And unfortunately, that's part of the problem. The costs go up the longer you wait. One thing I do want to say, I know the sheriff's here, and I want to let him have the floor, but I really do want to compliment the sheriff and his team. I mean, everybody's kind of come together here to try to figure out how we can compromise to get something that works for the county, but doesn't bankrupt the county. And so I really appreciate everybody's willingness, frankly, to compromise as we've gone through this discussion.
Yeah, and, we got to get it through the voters, and that's really the most important part of this. And I think it's a really good plan, and I think we've come up with a good point. So, how much are we going to run the bond for? The full amount?
Well, what we think from a management standpoint is that we probably can come up with maybe $2 to $3 million in cash because we manage county finance as well. We'd be in a position to do that, and so roughly, I think you'd probably be looking at maybe a $20 million bond.
I know we were talking about getting like $5 million from the state. Is that something we could still probably?
I don't know. I've continued to be in communication, with Senator Johnson, and I think that we all know money's tight, and I think that I think she was optimistic 8-10 months ago, a year ago, whenever we started this conversation. I think she's less optimistic now. And so I don't know what we might expect from the state. I think that's probably a conversation, we need to have with her, short sessions, in session. I'm not quite sure where they are in that and whether, she still has an opportunity to bring us some money in this short session or not.
I think that the voters look at a good deal, and if the county puts in money and we can get money from the state, and maybe that's a way that we could appeal to Betsy, that it's more likely to pass the voters if they see that if we do this, the voters will vote for the bond, then the state and the county will buy in with money that lessens the bond. I think that's important.
Yeah, I do too. And just to put this in perspective, you look at the chart that is up in front of you now, and you look at the chart on the left side, and you look at that top line that says deferred maintenance, and it's 3.223 million. I think that would be a best case scenario that we could get from the state. I mean, that's our argument to them is you've deferred $3.2 million in maintenance. Don't give that problem to us. But I don't think 5 million is realistic. I'm not sure if 3.2 is, but that would probably be the most we could expect.
So then we could, with an input, we could ask for 20 million, right?
Well, to go back to that, Chair Lee, with my conversations and Cam's conversations with Senator Johnson, it's been positive. She really does not, and I totally completely understand this, she doesn't want to spend any political capital unless we have buy-in from the commissioners. And that makes perfectly good sense to me as well, and from the community, and from the county, I should say. Then, as Commissioner Nebaker said, we get the state buying in, we get the county buying in. The people are going to look and say, you know what, this is something we've needed for a long time, 15 years or so, and it is about time that we move ahead. As the team is put together, including Cam and his great staff, we've been able to come, yes, we want 200 beds, but we're not going to get 200 beds, and we need to figure out a number that's logical and also doable for our community. And so we settled on this 148 beds, but with the ability to still build and mirror with inside the walls at a later date and time. So there's the deferred maintenance, but as I said, Senator Johnson is definitely interested, but this is something that she wants to make sure everybody has buy-in on. So
What? Yeah, I think the commission, after seeing, the commission has toured the facility at least once more. I think we're all supportive. We need to have.
Well, we've learned some valuable lessons from the community college. We all wanted a new college, but they wanted this grandiose scheme, and it was beautiful. And I would have loved to go to school there, but it was just too much for the voters. So after the fourth time, I think they finally said, let's just fix what we've got. And it's kind of the same thing that we have here. We're recycling an old building, and I think that's really important to know, is that we're going to utilize something. Yes, it does have some water damage around the outside edges and stuff, but what building in this county doesn't? And so it's deferred maintenance. It's something that we need to fix and work on, but it's also recycling something that's going to be, I think, a positive thing for the community. Also, the good part is when we get something like this, where people are actually held accountable, then we can get them into treatment programs, which are then conducive for that type of environment, and they can then come sit in there and say, okay, you know what, I have made some mistakes here, but and we've got some great programs going now, but we just don't have enough. We're releasing 9 to 12 to 15 people a week, and so it's just constant turnaround, overturn, so they don't get the help that they need. When they're incarcerated, they can get the help they need.
So this design is incorporating that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it's probably one of our biggest priorities.
Yeah, I know we talked about that before. I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
That's been the big partnership with our perimeter work in the county. It's been very important.
I mean, I come across as kind of a hard guy, redneck or whatever, but I believe in rehabilitation. I really do, and I always have. And it's incarceration is important, but rehabilitation is far more important, because that's the bottom line, is we have to get them back to being productive citizens in our society instead of going out and breaking windows and using drugs and things. If we can get them turned around, especially when they're younger, you just got a lot better society.
Yeah, and all of those points are so important that this gets out to the public through the press. Hopefully.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
I mean, just little, I'm sorry.
Tom, do you
Yes,
recall how much the previous bond failed by?
Well, it was actually, it passed in some, not district precincts, and it failed in others, and I don't recall, but I know it wasn't real close, but it wasn't real far either. It was probably 60-40, somewhere in that range. I just don't remember. I really don't.
I'm just curious
but
to
I know,
see what we're working with from the previous,
Right.
What do you have to do to get that 20%?
Well, and here's the interesting kind of fact on that whole issue was, back the first time we tried it, the jail, there was a lot of people in this community that said, this jail's only 20 years old, and that's nothing. And they were right. And we were kind of going for a great big giant grandiose thing. Then the second time, it's like, you know what, we can fix this building here and try to do this and so on. And it didn't really fail badly. It passed in parts of Seaside, it passed in parts of Warrenton, it passed in parts of the rural counties and so on. But it failed enough that it didn't make grade. Also, and God rest his soul, but at that time, 10 years ago, it was not as violent as it is now. Clatsop County is #1 crime per county in the state of Oregon, and in several different areas. And so, when Jason was shot and killed, a lot of people said, if we could have just kept that guy in jail, we could have, would have, should have, maybe this would not have happened. I don't know, maybe not. But as I said earlier, we're releasing 9 to 15, sometimes even more a week out of our jail, and there's no accountability currently. So it's getting that word out. I go to all kinds of meetings. I go to I eat more food than most people do, I think, and I talk with people, and whether it's the Cattlemen's Association or the Harbor or whatever, we always bring up this subject, and it's kind of like, this is something that's, nobody likes a jail. I don't want to have a big jail, but it's something that is necessary. It's a necessary evil, unfortunately, in our society. So, but I will do my best to try to get the word out, and so is my staff.
I will too. Kathleen?
I got a couple questions. One, the $2 to $3 million in cash, where do you see that coming from?
Your hotel? No.
Yeah, we have,
You got your own problem.
yeah, we have, as you heard from Monica's presentation, we have special projects funds, we have cash reserves. We've done a good job of planning for the day when we might need to do something like this, so we didn't have to borrow, all the money that we might need.
Kind of like the courthouse remodel when we did that several years ago, 10 years ago or so.
And some of that money that's in reserve, though, is also so that if times get tough, we don't have to lay off personnel, because personnel is the last thing to be laid off, so that's part of the reason.
That's a really good point, but what we at the Sheriff's Office do, and especially during my tenure, 14, 15 years, and with the previous sheriff, is a lot of those layoffs are done through what's the word I'm looking for?
Attrition.
Attrition. Thank you. Is that what you said? I think
Yeah.
you said it, just came to me. But a lot of it's done through attrition, Commissioner, and what the way that's done is we forecast every year where we're going to be next year. And our office, my budget guy is working on that basically all year round. And we say, okay, you know what, we're going to be short next year, the county's going to be short, and we have 2 positions to fill, we're not going to fill them. And that's what almost all the county departments do, and the Sheriff's Office. And so a lot of times Clatsop County's really been a very smart county through many good county managers and commissioners throughout the last 30 years that I can think of. And it's done through attrition. We don't do a lot of big layoffs. Matter of fact, I can only think of one time where we laid off a few people, and it wasn't in my office. It was when it was way back 20-some years ago. But it's always done through attrition, because we're always forecasting and trying to predict where we're going to be with the future finances.
And I appreciate that. The second question I have to ask, and I brought this up at each time that I've been at these meetings, is my concern is the medical costs that people,
The what cost?
medical costs.
Oh, yes.
Of
Good
taking
point.
care of the prisoners. Right now, they are oftentimes, is it matrixed out for
Yep.
medical reasons?
Yep.
And so if they are in,
Well, we just changed the matrix, but that's a whole
yeah,
other
I
thing.
saw that in the
Okay.
consent calendar, and I didn't see that.
And just a side note, real quick to interrupt you, our appearance rate has gone up to something like 85%. So we are getting a lot of people, when we're doing this new system, they're coming back to court now we have two individuals that are basically going, it's kind of a babysitting deal, but it's actually working very good for the county. It's going to save us money in the long run.
The
But
grants that we signed off on a few months ago, yeah.
right.
I think
So
that's a
anyway, I
great
didn't mean to
program.
interrupt you,
I think
but
that's a great
the
program.
medical costs.
The medical cost of, people that have been using hard drugs can stack up some very expensive medical conditions. And it's my understanding that after 30 days, it'll be on the county to pay for those medical
With the
costs.
OHP plan.
And with what's going on in Washington, I'm very worried about what kind of money is going to be coming through to the county for a lot of items. But I'm just wondering what your answer to that is about increase in beds also increases medical costs. And as you know, we've talked about it before, the 2 doctors that we have now are fantastic, but they are and been doctors for a long time.
Right.
So what do you foresee in the future of taking care of these medical costs?
Right. We have looked at that extensively. Matter of fact, the jail commander was just talking to me today about that very same issue. We've looked at Lincoln County, where they're very similar. They're spending about, was it $700,000? $700,000 a year. A lot of the costs are similar to Clatsop County and so on. But then there's Tillamook County, who has more beds than us, and they're spending like 300,000 and 300 a little bit more. But so we are totally, completely dedicated to trying to figure out the best method of this once our 2 doctors leave us, because we've been so fortunate, as we've discussed, to have these 2 individuals, and hopefully we can find somebody to fill their shoes, but realistically I doubt it. So yes, you are correct, there will be an increase, but currently we're doing everything we can to mitigate it, and we're going to continue to do that. So.
But is the cost of that something that would be included in this bond, or is this bond only for physical
No,
building?
this is for physical. This isn't
Yeah,
for
only for construction, not
personnel costs
operations.
and things like that. So, yeah, this is construction costs.
And just to come back to a question that was brought up before about rehabilitation and treatment, when you say that this is very much part of your mind that in the plan that you want to do, is that referring to the unused building that in the future we would make that into treatment? Or is there
No,
design?
there's already,
That's what I need some more clarification.
we already have room set aside in this plan to, she can show you here if
I
you'd like, that will be rooms for not only mental health, but physical stuff and all kinds of different things. So, no, this is already incorporated in, because it has to be. I mean, you just can't move forward without something like this. So,
That would be in programs, is that the?
programming,
Yeah,
programs,
right.
and then Erica could.
I can point out here on this one, but
That'd be great.
so the spaces that are going to be used specifically for program spaces is, that's part of this plan. So this is the existing housing unit that is the county housing already on site. This will be used for classification housing and this is where the single beds will be. They're existing, but that allows one-on-one interaction and being able to watch people that need extra care or
Someone's in crisis.
and also as they're being transitioned and classified. This is the current intake, and we've renovated some of it and added some, you'll see the dark walls or rooms. These are the, where they would put people that are on like a suicide watch or a mental health crisis that really need to be watched, because this room right here has direct access that person can be watched 24 hours a day by the security control person here. Then in this yellow area, and there's additional, just the quick holding that's in here, but that's the main special holding right there to get that special view directly to them. This area here is staff area. This is the current maintenance area. This one here is the mental health and medical, new medical wing. So this would be built out to be fully modernized with all the equipment and having interview rooms and spaces where the providers can talk directly with the people. Then in the actual housing unit themselves, these areas are day rooms that have special furniture and stuff to create a living environment that's conducive to them to be able to decompress and calm down. So they use soft furnishings that are durable and meant for inmates, but that allows them to kind of decompress and be able to relate with people on a normal level instead of being antagonized. There's outdoor rec areas for both central, or this larger one for groups of people that can be outside, and this small one will be used for people who need solitary recreation. And then this area is the existing gym and space, which will be opened up for people to have indoor recreation spaces because of the weather constraints here.
I'm sorry, one more question. I know from my tours of the jail that we have here, one thing that really was lacking for me was natural light. Is that improved in this design?
These schemes are filled with skylights. They have 10, or depending on the size that they turn out, they can have between 7 to 12 skylights. They're very large. We've used them in many facilities. They bring a significant amount of daylight because in this configuration, they also want to provide enough daylight here that it can flow naturally and passively into the cells so that they have access to natural light through their windows. So they have very large windows on the doors. So those spaces are filled with light. So many times the daylight sensors will turn all the other lights off and it's totally brilliant inside. It's very nice with the colors and tones that we use to make sure it's very reflective and calming.
Well, just to complement this, it's still a jail, And last time we gave a presentation, I received a couple of emails and some letters from the community saying, you know, Sheriff, you can basically go to you-know-where because these people need to be locked up and breaking rocks all day. That's not reality anymore. And, you know, why should they have a basketball court and why should they have this and that? I just want the press to know that this still is a jail and it is still a place of confinement, but it is also going to be a place where we can get these people some help to make them productive citizens in our community again. And it's the whole picture. It's not just making them go out and break rocks anymore like it was at Cool Hand Luke days. It's just not how it is. And so the reality is it's still a jail. It's still some place that I hope that people don't want to go. It's also a place that once they're there, I hope they can get some help.
Well, the other thing too is, a long time ago, I read an article about taking care of seniors, particularly seniors that have dementia issues. And in Europe, what they found was if they put a black mat over the doorway, because of the brain problems, and I'm not explaining this very well, they see that as a deep hole that they can't cross. So they were finding that they could keep people without restraint within an area. It's a simple thing like that.
I wish I'd try that with my teenage daughter when she was.
But I mean, you know, something like adding natural light that will be healing and calming is going to help in so many other directions also.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to hear that the design that you're putting together.
And these people are really experts. I mean, we have our ideas of how many beds we need and you know, what it is our community, the tolerances and what it is that we actually need in our community. But these people have built so many of these jails and are all over the country, and they learn as the years go by and they get better and better and better. And we're fortunate to have this group, and we've used them before with our remodel of the transition center into a sheriff's office, parole and probation offices. And they did a marvelous job, and it came out very well, and it's extremely conducive for our kind of work. And so that's why we rely on these type of individuals to come up with ideas, and then we can tweak it a little bit to our needs. So we're not experts in any way, so we rely on them. But so I think it's been a nice marriage, and it's really been nice also working with the county manager as well. So.
I just have one question. I just want to be sure I get this right. The owner's contingency 10%.
Right.
Exactly what that figure means?
That is a typical soft cost that we implement on jobs because during construction or during any project, there's things that unforeseen circumstances that come up.
That's what I thought.
And it covers it, so then you don't need to ask for more money later.
Contingency funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And hopefully we won't use it.
This is good. This is where we're at, and I believe that we should work hard to sell this to the community. And it's going to take all of us working together, and I think that we should focus on putting this on the November ballot.
Yeah, tonight, this is just a discussion item, so no decisions can be made, but if you are at that point where you feel comfortable having that discussion and making that decision, we could put this on the next meeting agenda, and, you know, you would have to vote and direct us to, you know, go ahead and prepare to put that bond on, so.
Are we going to have any public meetings where citizens have input before we?
I would love it if they so desire. I do go to a lot of public meetings, but if you know, tonight's was advertised too, but if you know, if you feel that necessary, or even if you, at the next meeting, if you decide to put this on the ballot, then we can easily, you'll have public discussion at that meeting.
We've had a lot of, you know, engagement with the public on this over the years, and so I think that the way we move forward on this is that we could definitely, you know, encourage public comments, you know, on this, and hopefully people do write in.
Is there a Facebook page or a web page where people, or just a county page where people, if they want to look at this,
I get sorry, Commissioner, I get a lot of comments, written, verbal in my meetings and so on. It says, yes, I completely support this jail. I did get the couple of letters after the last article came out that this is going to be a great big grandiose fun place for people to go hang out like an arcade. which it's not. It's still a jail, press. So, but we can, we have a very active Facebook page, the Sheriff's Office. I mean, we get hundreds of comments a week, and I would be more than happy to put something out there, you know, hey, you know, let me know what you think about a jail, and I could probably have it on there as early as tomorrow. I mean, it's something that we do, and we put out all of our press releases on that, or if we have, every time I swear in a new person, that's all over it, and people write in, you know, hey, great, I know that kid since, you know, he was born, or whatever. So
I can see your Facebook's a big thing now.
yeah, but they say now, no offense for you and I, but they say it's for us old people.
Yeah,
We're supposed to be on
that's what I
Twitter
hear.
or whatever.
Okay, so basically, I think by consensus, we're pretty much in favor of this plan. So I think it's what we need to do is just bring something formal to the board, and then go from there.
We can do that in 2 weeks. You're meeting 2 weeks from tonight.
Yeah, no, I may not be here in 2 weeks, so.
I might not be either, but I'll have staff that could be here, so thank you.
If I have to call in, I'll call in.
I can call in too.
Sounds like
Should we do it in March?
Oh, that's what I'm thinking. Can we do this at the first meeting in March?
We could do that, just the way the calendar falls, the meetings in March are the same as they are this month. They're on the 14th and the 28th, so we could look at March 14th, which would be a month from now.
And we'll focus on the November general.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, and again, I feel like I should share this with you. I'm sure you're probably well aware of it, but I know I've had a couple conversations, including today, from the superintendent of schools in Astoria. You know, they are planning to go out for a bond. It's a continuation of an existing bond that's already in place. He said they're not looking to increase, you know, the levy rate or any of that. But of course, he was very curious, you know, whether we might be going out, and I said, of course, I don't know until the commissioners make a decision. So you should just be aware of that as you consider your decision.
Yeah, well, tax fatigue, as it was, we read the article in the paper, what happened in Cannon Beach. And so, yeah.
I totally understand that as well. I too am a taxpayer, and my taxes went up $1,100, $1,200 a
That's the number one
month
thing I hear
Seaside
from people is
for the school.
it's usually focused on a tax bill. The only hate mail I get is pretty much
Right.
focused in that area.
Yeah, just another aspect to this that, you know, I know you're aware of, but you should consider. And let me just give a little bit of background on the youth correctional facility. But the county sold that land to the state for that facility. In the deed, there is a reversion clause that says if they fail to use it for 12 consecutive months as a youth correctional facility, it comes back to the county. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because that 12-month period will be before the November election. So as you think about this, you know, we don't know if you put something on the ballot in November whether it will pass or not, but you will need to make a decision in the coming months about, you know, do we want to take this or not? And the point is if we take this facility and, you know, we don't have a jail bond or some other plan, I think this gets back to, I think, Commissioner Sullivan's question, or maybe it's Commissioner Nebaker, then we have a much bigger empty building that we're going to have maintenance costs associated with. Now, certainly over time, we could find uses for it, but, you know, you should keep that in mind as well. And unfortunately, the timing of these just simply doesn't line up. And, you know, November obviously comes after September 30th. And so at some point, probably, I would say by the end of September or maybe earlier, the state, and I've been having ongoing discussions with them, you know, they're going to want to know, are you guys taking this back or not? If not, they have their own method for, you know, how they could dispose of this property.
Well, what do you think? I mean, we've been in discussion with Senator Betsy Johnson. Could we say we're going to hold off on that decision about taking that back until the bond passes or not? And if the bond didn't pass, would the state hold on to that, knowing that that's what we want to do? I mean, what do we have more than just a black and white option on that?
Yeah, I could ask that question. I mean, that's probably not something that Senator Johnson, and hasn't been involved in that really much up to this point. Once OIA abandoned this facility, it now is under the control of DAS, the Department of Administrative Services, and those are the people I've been talking to. They might be willing, to do that, might be willing to give us a couple months, give us to the end of the year. I can't say for sure, but I'd be happy to have that conversation with them. We do touch base about once a month, just to kind of, see where we're at.
Well, and also just real quick recap, as Commissioner Neviker said, with the tax issue, when the county citizens see that the county is going to try to assist and that the state is going to try to assist, and that lessens the burden on the actual individuals, and they understand the real true need for a current newer facility like this, I think that we have a really good chance of hopefully getting this passed. So, and I'll do my end of it, and so will my guys and gals. So.
We all have to work together on this, so let's do this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Is there any more questions that you had, Kathleen? Or you? Okay, so we got pretty much, staff's got some direction on this.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll bring something back to you. Now we're looking at March 14th.
Yeah,
And because I frankly, I do think it's important that all 5 commissioners be here when that decision is made.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to commissioners' reports. Commissioner Sullivan.
Well, I have some questions I'd like to ask, and then I have some other things to go through. So, Sarah, when I was reading the minutes from that were in there, you had mentioned a workshop focusing on people with mental illness involved in the criminal justice system. And I don't know if that was going to be through the sheriff's department, and the sheriff's still here. Did that workshop ever happen, or is that something that we can look forward to? There was in the January 10th meeting, there was a mention of a workshop that was getting worked on for focusing on people with mental illness and how they involve themselves with the criminal justice system.
I'm sorry.
You don't remember that? I don't remember that. Okay, I was just wondering if that's, because I have a bunch of workshops.
Okay, which meeting was that?
January 10th.
Okay, let me see here.
You're talking about March 16th.
Yeah, I thought it was in March.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
was just wondering I just wanted some more details on that when I read the minutes. So that's something we'll hear more about?
Okay, what
Is
would
that
you like to know about it?
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay, so this is a event hosted by Gobi where we have multiple community stakeholders that will be participating, and we will looking at how each of the mental health system works. And it's like it's just fading out, but we'll be looking for choke points or where the system sometimes fails people, and we'll be looking at ways to address those. Right now, we have a comprehensive list of people that are coming to it. What we've been looking for is one participant for each stakeholder. And I believe Commissioner Neviker, you're coming to that? Yes, March 16th.
Yeah, this is, we don't have all the details in terms of everything that will happen that day, but this is going to be pretty technical, and it's an all-day type of commitment to go through this training on this sequential intercept mapping.
Okay. So,
But if I had the time off work, I would be allowed to attend, is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
and where?
It's right
It's
here.
actually here in the Boynton.
And what was the time?
It starts at 8 in the morning.
Yeah, the schedule right now is 8 to 5, so.
Okay, thank you very much. The other question I had from the previous minutes is we've talked about the voters pamphlet. One of I emailed y'all about the wording on the ORS second statute, I can't say that word for some reason, 251.365. Is this something that we'll be getting on the agenda soon that we can discuss, or is that something we can discuss today, or the voters pamphlet?
Yeah, it'll be back, I'm guessing March. We'll get it back at one of the March meetings. There's plenty of time to make a decision about that, so.
Right, but I think it's a timely thing now, and even though we have this next elections taken care of, I'd like to just get this taken care of and,
Oh, the special districts, well, yeah, I think that,
because that seemed to be what was holding up was the special districts, if they could afford it or not. And this wording says that there's a way around it if they can't afford it.
well,
And so I just
county
want to.
manager can address that, because he's answered a couple different questions concerning.
Well, we're looking at that, you know, what it says is if a special district can't afford it, then that cost could be apportioned to all the other special districts. So
Right.
we have to kind of look at that and say, well, the other district's going to want to pick up the costs for districts that won't. I will tell you, I think we've heard back from, I don't know, maybe a half dozen or so taxing districts at this point, and a couple of smaller ones predictably have said, no, we're not interested, don't want to be a part of it, wouldn't participate even if you had a voter pamphlet. You know, in other words, as candidates or boards have said that, you know, we wouldn't want to be in a voter pamphlet. So we're going to get mixed response to this.
Well, I think that's part of the issue that I have with that is the transparency of the special districts. And we had talked about at that meeting, you know, like some of the special districts, there's not a phone number that's easily, you can't find the phone numbers, you can't find a list of who is even on the boards. And that's something I would like to do what we can to work to improve that, so that people know who's on the special districts, who's serving, what their time is, how do you contact them. And I think that's something that we need to work on. I don't know what our power is to do that, but I certainly think that that would be
we have no
beneficial.
power. They're independent governments, just like we are.
Do they have their own budget that they generate themselves?
If
that's why
it's a
they have-
special district, they have some taxing authority, so they're managing their own money. We don't see that. There's a few special districts that the county actually controls, but the vast majority of them are independent. So they have their own revenue sources. Their boards are elected by whatever area they represent, and so they're basically separate entities from
And
the
if they're
county.
elected, they go through the county election office, right?
They do.
So the county
Yeah.
election office would have a list of who's on their boards.
We do most of the time, yeah. They change, you know, these are not positions that people always stay in for a long time, so there's a lot of change in these boards, you know.
But don't they have to let the state know if they have to appoint someone if someone leaves?
I think they let the state know, but we don't get that information.
Okay, well, I just would like to encourage us to find ways to encourage them to be more transparent, and either that'd be links on our county webpage or something. I can't believe shouldn't all be a secret society, but, okay. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is this letter that I'm asking for support from the board to send to Governor Brown concerning OSHA's, Oregon OSHA's right now is conducting rulemaking to establish standards for the pesticide application near farm worker housing and work sites. And what I would like to do is to write a letter in support that they require at least a minimum of 100-foot no spray buffer between the pesticide application and farm worker housing. And secondly, that OSHA reevaluate the reentry time requirement. Right now, Oregon law requires a 60-foot no spray buffer zones around areas of homes and schools that would be subject to forestry sprays, but those sprays are much less frequent. And workforce housing, in agricultural, they may be subject to up to 24 spraying events per year. Plus, they're working the fields with all of that all the time. And so I just was hoping that I could get support from the commissioners that we could send this. The public comment period for this is statewide, of course, and we're just one other letter in that. But how do we do this to get support for that?
Well, I read this over, I think it's fine, and I support sending this off to Governor Brown. You all get a chance to look at it, it's pretty straightforward. It's just asking them to, when they're considering the rulemaking, to establish pesticide applications a little more stronger. And so basically, by consensus, is everybody good with that? And so we'll send that, and we'll give that to staff, and they can put it on letterhead and.
Yeah,
and
that's-
I'll sign it.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
You bet.
One other thing, and maybe I'm paying too much attention to my emails, but there's this email from Oregon State University College of Public Health and Human Sciences, and they want to know about how we feel about youth and family mental health needs in our county. And I don't feel like I feel like we get better answers either from Amy Baker or
I think this went out to all of the.
all the commissioners, right?
Not only all the commissioners, but also directors.
But is that something that we could answer together, or is that something we could have maybe Amy Baker answer for us, or?
Well, if she wants to, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can fill that out too, and I think it was directed to each individual commissioners.
Okay, so that's not something that has to be done together?
No,
Okay.
we each can send that out.
All right, last Sunday, February 10th, I attended for just a part of the Wings Conference at the Classic Community College. It's a fantastic program, and I'm so proud of Community College for having that. On terms of my assignments, the FTLEC meeting for February has been canceled. Some of that is, I believe, because the Lynn County lawsuit is ongoing, and we're the only county that is not in the Lynn County lawsuit. The counties that are preferring not to speak publicly in meetings until it's resolved. So we'll see what happens. Maybe that wasn't the complete answer for why it was canceled this time, but the Board of Forestry is going to be meeting on March 7th, I believe, and I will be attending that in Salem. On my Northwest Senior and Disability Committee, our Director of Operations, Rodney Schroeder, is resigning because he has family. He's taking care of his own parents, and so we'll be getting a new operations director. I find the Northwest Senior Disability Services Associations just really do a wonderful, wonderful job, and I hope that we can get someone as good as Rodney Schroeder was. As part of that, my interest in the senior issues, I attend the monthly Senior Network, which is a group of people from Golby to Providence to the memory care units. We meet once a month and deal with certain issues. One of them is that they are hoping to attract more people into the caregiving field. And so they are on March 28th and 29th at the Providence Seaside Hospital. They're going to be doing a free 2-day seminar to learn about what is caregiving and how you take care of that, and give them, give them some more information, and then they'll have a little certificate. It's not through the college, but just to try to encourage that. And then also as part of that senior network that I go to, Clatsop County unfortunately has one of the highest suicide rates among senior men in the state, and so we are trying to reach out to senior men in the county. And the next meeting, the first meeting that we're going to have about this is going to be February 28th, Wednesday, from 11:30 to 1:30. We'll be feeding the meal through the senior meals there. It'll be free for anyone that wants to attend. The discussion will be what we know about men, illness, loss, and loneliness, and a call to action. We'll have people from the business community there. We'll have, and some people, there's 2 things that are really great going on. One is the warm line, where people can call, seniors can call if they want to talk to someone, and then there's a peer-to-peer counseling group that they will make, they'll say, okay, I'm going to call Teresa on Tuesday. So if Teresa's a senior at home, she can look forward to a Tuesday 2 o'clock phone call from someone else who is also a senior who's trained. And it's a way to reduce loneliness and just kind of keep in touch with people. So those are the things that I'm working on. But I'm hoping that if you know anyone that you think might benefit from coming and talking to men, there's I have a phone number that, the online, this is just a draft because we just did it today, but the phone number is active, and you can also call me. I will further them along that way too. Another thing about the community is Hampton is getting together with they have this great, Cliff Tuttle has been working on this. They have a program that's going to be the week of August 20th for girls 8 through 14. And they're going to be focusing on the trades, framing, finishing carpentry, electrical, plumbing, sheet metal, etc. It's going to be hosted at the Warrenton Grade School, and they have a website called girlsbuild.org. And there are scholarships available, and they hope to get up to 40 girls this year. I think that's a great program. And Teresa, I will give you a list of these things. The other thing is ODFW has a new website out on, it's called My ODFW, and it's launching to support your outdoor pursuits, focusing on hunting, fishing, crabbing, clamming, and wildlife viewing opportunities. And this weekend is legal fishing hours. You can introduce a friend, family, co-worker fishing during Oregon's free fishing days. Offers Oregon residents and visitors an opportunity to experience fishing, crabbing, clamming without the need for license or tags. And I think that's pretty cool, and they are offering that about 4 times a year. Sorry, I have a lot of things today. The other thing is the Nakayakim, I can't say that, Watershed Council is going to be offering this weekend also Listening to the Land, Living on the Dynamic Coastal Edge. They're going to have a talk about that, and this special person that Peter Hayes is going to be there, and I have a press release on that. That's going to be on, I got this wrong here, maybe it's on Wednesday, February 21st, I do. So next week, Peter Hayes is going to be talking about forestry. So we have so many opportunities in our communities to listen to great speakers about a wide range of topics. And coming up is the Marijuana Summit. I don't think they're calling it the Marijuana Summit. Public Health and Marijuana Summit. And I think we all have gotten emails on that. It's going to be May 10th, 9th through 10th in Portland, and I just thought that since we are working on the county-wide, we're working on an ordinance, that it'd be beneficial for someone to attend. I'm not able to attend because I'll be going to another conference on forestry during that time period. So is there anyone that's interested on the commissioners that would be able to go to that? That's why I handed this out. So I know that Director McNichols is going to send someone from his office, but I think it would be good for one of us to attend if that's possible. And then finally, I've brought this up before, but April 10th to the 11th is going to be the Columbia River Estuary Conference, and I want to attend that. I attended it 2 years ago, and I'd like to go again this year. I think it's about $275. And I'm also working with the schools and the college to get a list of students that are interested in science and some teachers possibly to at least get them there for the keynote speakers. So if you know anybody that's interested in this, you can also call me and let me know. We're trying to, and I'm working with the Extension Service also to try to get a list of some names there. So I think that's it. It's a lot. So thank you for your patience.
Well, great, thank you. Commissioner Nebeker.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I was really happy that we have a behavioral health services coordinator. I think that's going to be really beneficial for us, and
Yeah, she starts next week.
yeah, that's wonderful.
So.
And I appreciate the monthly updates from our county manager. It helps me stay informed and current on the issues and reminds me about the issues that we're supposed to be looking at. I'm really happy about the outcome of our push to get our county on board with renewable energy through Pacific Power. And I really like the idea of having this building having solar energy and what that will do.
Yeah, we're looking into the costs, all the costs associated with doing that right now.
Well, I think that would be really exciting. I know several months ago I brought up this problem that we have in the state, that we are dead last in mental health and in the country, and I would like to have a letter. I dropped the ball. I think the county manager and I were maybe going to get together and talk about sending a letter to our state representatives. Is that still do that? The commission all agreed at that point.
Anything we need
Ask
to
them.
improve it, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know that it will do any good, but I think we need to really press them because, I mean, Oregon shouldn't be dead last in anything that's beneficial to our citizens. So that's all that I have.
Commissioner Clement?
Just a couple things. The beginning of the year, the school, county schools put out a initiative for Strive for 5, trying to get absent rates down, and they just came out with their first 3 months of analysis, and last year it was 25% of the students were chronically absent, and right now over the first 3 months it's down to 15%. So
Wow.
I think it's working, even despite the big flu outbreak. I think it's still working. So that's good. Another thing about the schools, especially after today, was really, I'm really happy to go to my kids' school and have to be identified through a video of who I am in order to get in the building. It's really not inconvenient. It takes just another second. And after today, it's super important. The high school is not doing that yet. They're trying to figure out how to implement a good, solid security system there, because there's one door in all of our grade and middle school to get in and out. There's several doors, but they're all locked. So the kids come in one door, primarily. In high school, they come in and leave multiple doors, and they leave. It's open campus for the kids that are sophomore and above to go have lunch off. So it's more challenging. But they're really concerned and they're really working on it. So they're trying to figure out how what that's gonna look like in the future. And, you know, it's really important after today. So, and just a little note about the fair board. I see my role as sort of a buffer and a liaison between the two, because they have for one reason or another over years, they have a little bit of their guard is up a little bit for working with the county and letting them work with them. And so I'm trying to, I talk with the board members fairly often, and they have questions for me that they don't understand. I understand why do we need to watch that budget? They understand, but they don't understand, and they wonder, is there something that they don't get, but others get? So I don't think it's really that they're trying to do anything illegally. I just think that they are weary of letting people know what they're doing. So that's my sort of role, is to tell them, listen, if you tell us what you need, we have a whole budget process. You can come anytime and speak to us about what you need and what is on the plan and what your vision is. Like, Tom comes and he tells us, I want this facility and this beautiful jail, and can you get it for me? And we say no, and he says, well, okay, we'll work it. Well, now can we get this? And that's what we need there on obviously a much smaller scale. So it's just slow process, so.
Hopefully, you can help them see the need for them to
Well, for some
communicate.
reason or another, I think it's because they're just, all of them have been here for multi-generations, and so have I, and I think there's some kind of weird, like, okay, we can talk to her kind of thing going on. So that's what I'm trying to.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the report. A couple things. Attended the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority meeting last Thursday, and if you've read the paper, you've seen that we'd sold the Uniontown house to Helping Hands, and I think I was pleased to see the editorial in the Daily Historian yesterday. I think it's really important to the community understands this is not a homeless shelter. Okay, it's not like some place to go and sleep for the night and get out in the morning and continue your day. Homeless. What this is a recovery shelter. It's structured. You have to enter the program. You have to be a part of the program. There's drug testing. It's a very structured program. And I think that there's been a perception that there's some kind of homeless shelter in Uniontown, and that's precisely not what it really is going to be. It's going to be a recovery center where people will have a strict discipline regime, and if they don't follow it, they're out. And the board unanimously supported Helping Hands' initiative there, and we have worked with them on down in Tillamook County, and seen what they can do, and so the track record's there, and I think it's pretty clear where I've stated my support on this. And so I'm pleased that this is going to move forward, and this is going to free up some money for us to build dedicated affordable housing. And also, I think the merger is pretty much done. We have two properties, Owens Adair and Pleasant Shores are the final two properties to be transferred. We've sold the seaside land. They're signing the papers on that. And so basically, we're in a position now, and we have been, building the capacity of the Housing Authority. And I think that the current director, Johnson's doing a great job, and I look forward to working in my final year to continue to work with NOAA to provide important service to the community. Attended the CREST meeting, where we talked about some of the projects going on. There's some really great projects that are going across the river. Where we're replacing some culverts. We did the one there by the Megler Rest Area. Just before that, we put a giant box culvert. We've actually done some sampling there, and there's actually smolts that have been going under the bridge and feeding in the area.
Wow.
And it's enabled coho and spawning habitat, like a mile of spawning habitat. And the next project we're doing, which is with BPA funding, is upstream from there where the old broken Navy ship is, and that broken barge, it's just a derelict. There's a stream that comes under there, and we're putting another box culvert right there, and that project will be beginning soon. And they're doing some other projects up and down the river, including Willapa Bay, working with counties on both sides of the river, and all the way up to Salvia Island. They're playing a major role in the breaching of the dike to allow flow in a lake called Sturgeon Lake. So it'll increase a lot of habitat on the river. It's really important work that CREST does, and I've really enjoyed being on that board for the last 7 years. And one neat thing is that they, for all their vehicles, they put together a GOAT ditch bag. A lot of them work in remote areas in the flood zone. And so it was neat to see they took a really deliberative approach to build their own bug out kits and go kits and survival kits and their all the vehicles and boats. And so that's kind of neat. I've been working on one of those myself for my rig, and kind of fun. Good.
So if they're out in their boats when something happens, they'll have something that they can.
Yeah, they have some pretty good redundancy systems, just like the normal safety things that are required on boats, but they've taken it a step further to, really ensure the safety of staff. Because a lot of times they're in the river, in the mud, so they really want to be well prepared, which is great. to watch them working towards that goal. And that's all I have right now. County Manager Moore.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick update on a couple of not new topics we've talked about before. I mentioned that we would be coming into contract negotiations with AFSCME, and we do have a first date set now, which is March 14th, so we'll get started with that coming up here in about a month. We've also talked in the past about the countywide housing study. The deadline for submissions to that from consultants to do the study is this Friday. Based on the number of inquiries I've gotten from consultants, frankly, around the country, I suspect we're going to get a number of proposals. The steering committee for that project is already scheduled to meet next week to review the proposals, and hopefully there'll be, somebody there that we want to hire and move forward with. And then also would mention that we started the interview process for our HR director this week. I just want to caution, this is like the beginning of the process, so, probably, I'm guessing would be at least 60 days maybe before we actually have somebody physically on board. But, so we've got that process moving as well. So.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Have a great week and a good evening.
God, I want to tell you, I don't want to speak to you.
Oh, it's great.
I want to
You should definitely